Well, joining me now is Gavin Ashenden, Associate Editor of the Catholic Herald, and in former times an Anglican bishop when he was part of Welby's flock. But of course, Gavin, you are a defector, are you not, from the Church of Welby?
I'm afraid I am. I'm a conscientious objector and also a defector, because the Church of Welby has become more and more political, more and more left-wing, more and more woke. And the problem with the Archbishop's speech was he was using all the language and all the ideology of a left-wing politician. And the reason that matters is that he doesn't appear to understand his job, his role. His role is to be a pastor for all his flock. Yep. And one of the absolute basic tenets of that is you don't take political positions, because your flock is going to comprise of people on the left, in the middle, on the right, and those who don't know. And therefore, if you take a political position, you immediately exclude anybody who doesn't share your politics from your pastoral care. You stop being Archbishop. And effectively, by speaking like this in the House of Lords, he no longer functions as an Archbishop offering pastoral care across the political boundaries.
No, I feel that way about him too. And yet, I mean, he sees this as a moral dimension. He seems to think that as many fit young men between 18 and 30 who want to cross the English Channel in inflatable dinghies via, of course, criminal trafficking gangs, he seems to think we have a moral responsibility to accept all of these people.
But the problem with morality, Nigel, is it's complex. I mean, it's incredibly complex. Not only is it complex in terms of weighing up the different claims on our morality, as you did earlier, but in terms of the outcome of people's actions, it's enormously difficult to know what happens if you take a particular course, what the outcomes are. There's always the law of unintended consequences. And it's quite wrong for a moral leader to pretend that he has some kind of moral, absolutist moral insight that other people don't have, when actually all he's doing again is simply, I'm afraid, parroting left-wing ideology. That isn't that doesn't represent a mature moral, ethical insight, because one of the first things you do is you'd say, this is so complex, it's very hard to know which moral values come out of the top. And in the end, actually, there is no Christian view about the responsibility of the state. We've been arguing this for the whole of my lifetime, but the Christian view, Margaret Thatcher was one of the most famous people who got this right. She said, essentially, it's all about the Good Samaritan. If you want to exercise compassion to your neighbour, then you look after your neighbour with your resources. The Archbishop's moral position would be to take refugees into his palace and look after them. Beyond that, there is no Christian mandate to tell the state how to behave or how to expend its resources. You can do that as a citizen democratically, but there isn't a Christian template for it. And he's misrepresenting Christianity using his office to pretend that there is.
Gavin, what's the method? I mean, let's suppose within the Anglican Church there were quite a lot of people saying this was way too political. Is there any way of reining in the Archbishop?
No, none whatsoever. And the problem is that the problem is that during my lifetime, it's been perfectly clear that the Anglican Church is losing the devotion of the people who look to it for solace and for a relationship with God. It's just ploughed on completely regardless. It closed down churches during COVID. It banned religious services. There was no point at which it wanted to stand up to the zeitgeist. Welby himself has been writing prefaces in transgender books for primary school children, which I find, frankly, so immoral that I'd use the word disgusting. That there is no way of making these people accountable. They are financially independent, politically independent, institutionally independent. Yeah. All we can do is turn our backs on them and say they've lost the plot.
I'm a very disenchanted Anglican, I have to tell you, Gavin. Final thought, as one of our beloved late Queen's former chaplains, what did you think of the coronation on Saturday?
Well, I loved it. We do pageant wonderfully. We do it like nobody else. It was done in an exemplary way. And I think, although there may be problems facing the monarchy in the future, the business of the day was just to be extremely grateful for all the hard work and the imagination that everyone who was involved put into it. And I'm very proud to be English and British at a time like this.
Hear, hear. Gavin Ashenden, thank you for joining me tonight on GB News. Well, let's turn to Mehmet, an old friend of this programme, chairman of Migration Watch. One of the problems, that your organisation faces, and I do too, is that if we're critical of those that cross the English Channel in dinghies. Somehow we've got the establishment, and perhaps the Archbishop is the epitome, in many ways, of the establishment, questioning our morality, questioning our motives, that basically he's on the side of virtue and you're a very bad person.
Well, far be it to judge myself as to whether I'm a good or bad person.
You see what I'm saying about the debate?
I do, Nigel. And I have to say that I found what His Grace said to a degree morally reprehensible.
Go on.
Why does he think that actually justifying and effectively encouraging those who come to this country illegally against the wishes of the vast majority of people in this country who want it to stop? It's costly and it's unfair.
Are you suggesting that the Archbishop of Canterbury is in effect encouraging the traffickers to carry on with their trade?
Effectively, that's precisely what's happening. That is precisely what it's doing. It's encouraging people to say, to come over here because it's okay. It's morally okay to do that. So go ahead and do it. That is wrong. And the vast majority of people in this country think it's wrong. And as for, you mentioned at the top of the programme that 450,000 people have come here, 500,000 people have come over the last 6-7 years. As refugees. Do you know that we have also, in 2021, we accepted nearly 5 times more directly resettled people in this country than the whole of the EU put together. They took in
You'll never hear that on the BBC.
22.
Never ever on the BBC will you hear that.
You won't. It was 22. In fact, we didn't hear. We heard the opposite from Mr. Lineker, but we'll let that slide for the time being. We accepted 105,000 people. Over nearly 105,500 people into this country, directly resettled. So what planet is His Grace on, frankly?
Well, no, what
I would suggest to him is, Your Grace, please stop engaging with the virtue signalling world of woke and engage with reality.
Moving on. It's all going to be okay, though, because Rishi's going to stop the boats.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, won't we? I'm not sure that that's going to happen. But first of all, let me just say that I think that Suella Braverman really does mean it. She wants to do that.
Clear.
I'm not sure that she's getting all the support that she needs from the whole of Whitehall, including Number 10, I have to say. I don't know, but that's the way I sense things are going. Whether the boats will stop... Look, the only thing that will stop those boats is if, on arrival, all those coming in illegally actually get detained, dealt with quickly, and removed. And that's not going to happen.
Which this legislation that was being objected to by the Archbishop of Canterbury, it does say in this legislation that's what they intend to do.
Well, that's what they intend to do. And if that's what's going to happen, great. You and I would welcome that. Whether it does or not, I'm not sure. One thing I would slightly disagree with you on, Nigel, I think that we probably should be pulling out of the ECHR now. No question. It's just wrong for the time. It's not fit for purpose.
We don't disagree on that.
No, we don't disagree on that. What I think I disagree with you on is the fact that that would effectively stop the boats coming. It won't.
No.
The push factors and the pull factors are far too great.
I've never said on its own leaving ECHR would stop the boats, any more than I said leaving the EU would make us richer. But it would.
It will, eventually.
But it would take away barriers to it. Final thought, very quickly, Ab, if I may. We've been chatting this week about the upcoming set of net migration figures. We were all astonished when the last lot was 500,000. I mean, the pre-Brexit high was 331,000, and that was against the 50-year Second World War to 2000 net 30,000 a year. We're told the next set of figures could be even higher.
Yeah, and let's not forget that those figures are 10 times higher than what we've got coming across the channel.
Yes.
I mean, that is a serious problem, and I think
But they're coming legally.
a danger, a risk. Coming in legally, largely
So the
because
government's
of the policies that the government has introduced. That, I think, is going to be something that we all suffer from. I don't know how many it's going to be, but what I can confidently predict is going to be hugely more than the 500,000, which in itself was unprecedented, that we had last time round, when we have the figures for the whole of 2022. That, I'm afraid, is something that the government is glossing over, and I would venture to suggest that they are actually using the channel as a distraction. I say it's about time that they started taking illegal migration seriously as well.